Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Tom McKay. I'm your stable genius host here tonight to make sure we're all stable and geniuses. 3D politics, and you'll notice one guy is missing, so I'll introduce everybody. David Oldham, and David D'Ambroso, who is existing in quantum state right now, showing non-coherence properties. As you can tell, actually, I
think his wife would disagree with that.
He's in well, for us today, he's in non-coherent properties.
He is our Obi-Wan tonight.
So I'll never act like he's not here. We do wish him and his wife a great and successful birth of another child into their family.
Blessed birth, yes.
A blessed birth to the D'Ambroso family, amen. And it's a big boost to the tax base. It's another new average taxpayer. So you know that kid 25 years ago see a little bump, you know. Oh, nice.
How many kids you got, Tom?
500. 500. I got 5 kids and a wife in that order.
Oh.
All right, today on 3D Politics, and I'm going to let you guys plug your own sites because I get confused. Today on 3D Politics, we had a few things to talk about. Pawhuska has a fireman that went after a grandma. It was a very exciting melee. Also, there's the continuing saga of the hemp truck there in Pawhuska. We're also going to talk a little bit about reparations. I've got a libertarian Q&A for the boys here. We're going to talk about ODOT mission creep, and also the exciting end of the show, crop of the crop of the drop, absolute bottom 5 of 100. All right, folks. Everybody else has a top 10. We got the crop of the drop. You know,
because we're from Oklahoma.
The cream of the crop, you know where that goes. Everything else drops, and this is the crop from the drop. It's the absolute bottom of 5. Bottom 5 of 100. We'll get to that to the end of the show.
We're
so
spellbound now.
Well, I got to give them something to live for.
That's right.
Why else would they stick around?
In case the show tanks, right?
All right, we're going to start off with the Pawhuska grandma and fireman fight. What happened?
Well, I had to tell you here, the folks in Pawhuska, I've always considered on one level they were more intelligent than the folks in Washington, D.C., that is. Because the folks in Pawhuska know where Washington, D.C. is. Right. But the folks in D.C. don't know where Pawhuska is. All right. Well, that was true until today. Let me tell you what, I tell you, some things have been happening there. First of all, we talked about, I think, a little last week about the police chief got fired on the very last day of the city manager's duties. The last thing he does is fire the chief of police, and then he takes off and leaves town, leaving the assistant city manager coming in to take over, at least for a time, and that guy used to be the police chief, and he was in on getting him fired. So, his name's Rex Weichel. Rex comes back to work on Monday, and by Tuesday, he resigned over the brouhaha from firing a very popular, very well-liked new police chief who's only been on the job 2 months.
So the city manager has now resigned, or
they are on their third city manager in the last 10 days.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
And so the original firing of the first police chief, they liked that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very well liked.
All right.
And so what happened then, the city council calls for an emergency meeting. They met on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, they go to the meeting not having a city manager nor an assistant city manager. And the woman who's been the administrative assistant for the last 7 years, first thing they do is they say, okay, you're our city manager for the interim. At least for
You're
this.
it.
You're it. You know? I mean,
look at you.
And, the first thing they tell her to do is, you fix our situation here with the police chief situation. And so after the meeting, she gets with their city attorney, and they meet with this fellow they just fired, Nick Silva. And the first thing they do is they give him his job back. So in the interim, the chief, so the city would not go without a head over their police department. So the sheriff was giving guidance to him.
Okay.
Wednesday night, the new police chief goes over to the police department, meets with this deputy sheriff. They do a ceremonial handshake saying, the department's yours. I'm respecting and acknowledging that you're the head
Both
law
cross
enforcement.
over to the demilitarized.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the setup for this. Meanwhile, what happened all last week, an attorney up there, Holcomb is his last name, attorney practicing, I believe, in private practice, starts a petition for recall. I guess it's in their city charter to recall the city council. And I guess there's 5 members on there. And
he wants to recall the whole batch?
Yeah. And a couple of dozen people I don't know, between 1 and 2 dozen from what I hear, got together for this meeting. Well, a friend of mine, or a social media contact that I've gotten to know over the months, especially with the hemp truck case way back in last winter, she decides to join this. So Friday, she's down around noon, lunchtime, down at the city park. It's a veterans park. It's real small, a little pocket park is what they call them here in Tulsa.
Right now, Broso would say, well, David, you know she's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, right. And she's got her little table up. She put a couple of signs saying, sign our recall petition. And she's got a friend of hers and a little granddaughter, a little gal with them. And what do you know? They aren't there but a few minutes, and a swarm of 3 city agencies show up. The first one on the scene is the dog catcher, don't you know?
It's almost an insult.
Yes. And 2 police squad cars show up,
Starsky,
and they're blocking
Punch.
the driveway up, and then even the fire department guy shows up. Well, now the female officer shows up. She's, from my accounts with the person being, called on, said they were polite, but told her you can't do this. City ordinances don't allow it. And she reminded them that the city is accountable to the state and federal government, and the state says that the parks must be allowed for this kind of free speech, especially political speech. Right. Because even our Supreme Court has ruled the most protected form of free speech is political speech.
Right.
Redress of grievance, which
Absolutely
this is.
right.
Okay, so she ain't budging. Grandma knows her stuff.
Nice.
And she's put up with a lot. She's been there since the 60s, and she ain't going to take this anymore.
Good.
And so she goes back to her stuff and being nice to everybody. She turns on social media, don't you know? Grandmas with social media can be powerful things. And I don't think the firefighter was quite aware of this.
That's what you call AI.
Because she's doing narration to us of what's going on. She's showing her 2 little signs, and she's got a couple of chairs by her car, and she's, sitting there. And no bullhorns. No Antifa flags or,
No blocking people.
Yeah, no clubs,
Trying to get
spears, no mace, and, cement milkshakes or anything like that. And, then the 2 police officers are talking to the dog catcher and fire department personnel.
Right.
And then the 2 police officers leave, and she's heard on saying, bless you, love you,
So a great interaction with the police officers.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Okay. And the last one to leave is this guy from the fire department, and I guess he was driving his own vehicle.
That's allowed?
Fact is, he was wearing a shirt that was issued just to the fire department. It was for the MDA telephone fill the boot thing. And he, and she's mentioning that this guy cussed out that little girl when the little girl said, you want to sign our petition?
Oh, Grandma witnessed the fireman cursing out a little girl.
Cussing out a little girl.
Well, it was them because they handed him the...
Oh, cussing out them in front of the little girl.
Cussing out...
No, the little girl.
The little girl says to the fireman, do you want to sign our petition? And he cussed her out. Okay? Yeah,
Was she on fire?
And so, she's mentioning, and she turns the camera and says, that's the fellow that cussed out this little girl. Oh. Well, he's, by his truck across the parking lot. Oh, that got him. The camera's on him, and he ain't going to put up with that. And he starts yelling at him, telling him, you can't take video footage of me,
Well, now probably he's not usually mean to little girls, and I'm being absolutely serious. This is what happens. He's probably not usually mean to little girls.
I don't hope so. Being a firefighter,
and he lost his temper. Everybody can lose their temper. I lost my temper. And then he realized the one time I was yelling at a little girl, they caught me doing it.
No, actually, the film wasn't going when he was.
No, I'm just saying. Somebody saw him being mean to a little girl.
He cussed her out in front of the 2 police officers.
I could be wrong.
Okay.
You know, in Fahrenheit 451, they were the bad guys too.
So anyway, he's coming over and demanding you can't film me in that, and he comes right up to her and starts grabbing her smartphone. Grandma, and hits her hand, and she's not giving this up, and she's not cussing at him. Because this is live on Facebook now. He doesn't realize it. The old days when you wore the badge, nobody questioned you. Those days are gone, folks, because we got social media and grandmas who aren't afraid and learn how to use them. So he finally gives up and walks away. But I got a screenshot of it because this lady sent me the video. Said, Dave, this is what's going on up here in Pawhuska.
So on Soonerpolitics.org, you can find this story about the Pawhuska firemen and see
with
the picture.
links, right?
Yeah, front page. Yeah, so the video's on there. In fact, I shared it on the 3D Politics Facebook page.
It's a video you want to watch.
Yes, it is. It's 6 minutes, but it catches this thing as it's happening. And so anyway, I checked with her. I confirmed all the story and that, and I said, okay, can I run with it? She said, yeah, please do. People need to know what's going on here in Pawhuska. So I ran the story, and I'm Facebook friends with the police chief because I tried to interact with him over this firing and rehiring stuff, but I've never met Nick.
No, but you have you have a nautical meeting.
Yeah, it was good. And so I sent him the link when I published it yesterday, early evening, and he texted me back. He says, thanks, I've heard about this, but I haven't seen the video. Looks like I've got a busy day tomorrow already.
Right, so he's looking at it.
And he didn't know how busy, because here's what happened afterwards.
If we would right now have a sponsor right now, Dave, I'd be cutting you so hard to a commercial.
Oh, you would have such good listenership because they would be bated breath.
Now
what
we're
happened
back
today?
from that exciting break, and tell us the rest of the story.
Well, Grandma, she just doesn't really want to have to get all this, in their face about it. And she's like, do I really file felony assault charges and attempted...
Well, that wouldn't be felony assault. That would be...
Well, she's picking up...
He hit her.
Well...
He's picking up fight or defending herself in a small town.
Attempted theft of a smartphone.
She's defending herself against the authority in a small town.
But anyway.
Okay.
Unless all assault is
that's true.
If you hit them, it turns to battery.
When it goes to... Yeah, eventually it can
then... She gets cussed out by enough people today, because again, everybody knows everybody in Pawhuska. Yeah.
Okay, let me key up here, because I got all excited about the commercial break. The grandma is trying to defend herself in a small town against the small town authority, which would include the fire department. Is that
correct?
Okay.
The city. A member of the city government.
Okay. So it takes a lot of gumption, for lack of a delicious word, to decide you're going to go ahead and say, I'm not going to roll over to the city authority.
Well, the other thing is, remember, small towns, and especially in a place like Pawhuska, people are related to one another, and so it's very tight.
Right.
Yeah.
Pawhuska's a small town.
So she had to make a big decision. She decides to go through with the pressing of the charge.
Right. So here's what happened. I called her. Wasn't even 2 hours ago. We talked. I said, "What happened today?" And she says, "Oh boy, get ready for this," because she said this firefighter is related to half the town, by her estimation, and she got insults from all kinds of people because. He's
a strong, powerful guy.
And it was just this little Sooner Politics blogs, citizen journalism here. But it got bigger than that because she finally had enough today She says, okay, I'm going down there. Now, mind you, and I told her last night, I said, the chief is expecting you tomorrow. He replied back to my text.
Right.
So she goes in his office, and she said he had the strangest look on his face. And she proceeded to tell me why, when she sat down, he said, I just got a call from the feds saying, what the heck is going on? Do we need to do an investigation?
Wow.
Now, I don't want to say what federal agency, because I'm getting this secondhand.
We don't know yet, right?
Yeah, he explained the chief knew exactly who he was talking to, but she just couldn't remember what federal agency it was.
It's unclear.
But he took her crime report, and he said, no, I'm going to have to turn this over to the sheriff's department because it's an investigation of somebody in our city government,
right.
A firefighter.
Right. So
which I expected, and I kind of told her, I said, don't expect the chief himself to actually be the one doing this investigation.
Right.
And so that's prudence on their part. But the fact that the federal government, after this little blog post, finds out about it, and they step in, it tells you what, social media, citizen journalism has some effect.
Well,
right?
And Pawhuska's been some moving and some shaking for a little
yeah.
while and some stuff.
So remember, I used to think Pawhuska was smarter than the feds because Pawhuska knew where the feds were. But
now
he now knows where Pawhuska is. And if it wasn't just for that story, the next story will even rub it in more why Pawhuska's in the national news.
You just did the hemp. I thought that's it, right?
No, I'm about to tell you about the hemp story.
Okay, we're moving to the
That was your segue.
So, as you know, last winter, January 1st, we got a new district attorney for that Osage County and a few other counties. And his name is Mike Fisher.
We're still in Pawhuska.
Yes,
still in Pawhuska.
Because he wasn't on the job as DA for 10 days. And all of a sudden, he gets the 3 a.m. graveyard crew of the Pawhuska Police Department got the biggest marijuana bust in Oklahoma history, don't you know? You don't believe it? Just ask them. They'll tell you.
Oh my God.
It was because it was a truckload of industrial hemp from Kentucky, which grows some of the best medicinal quality industrial hemp. They've been doing this for years, since 2014, when the USDA authorized industrial hemp. Because remember, even though hemp was still part of that Schedule 1 banned drug, the federal government did not differentiate industrial hemp from real powerful marijuana.
Right.
Okay, so but that all changed, and then part 2 of that change came December 20th when the federal government passed the Ag Bill that not only allowed states to have these programs, but now the interstate commerce of industrial hemp is became statutory.
Right.
Okay. And nonetheless, Mike Fisher, the DA up there, said, you know what? My tests, even though they're preliminary tests, says that it exceeded the 0.3% THC. That's the bad boy juice inside of marijuana that makes you funky, okay? They decided that if it doesn't stay within that 0.3, it changes from industrial hemp to the bad boy marijuana, okay?
Because now...
Yeah. And now, if you talk to Leader Eccles of the Oklahoma House, who wrote the bill to authorize the Oklahoma Industrial Hemp Program, he calls it non-compliant hemp. As long as it's beneath 1%, it could be triple what's allowed and still just considered non-compliant. Nobody goes to jail over it. You just have to discard it.
I call it patriotic hemp.
Okay. Yes, and there's more to that to come, let me tell you.
Nice.
So anyway, what the federal government weighed in through the USDA's General Counsel. And they said, look, this is interstate commerce, and it's governed by the U.S. Constitution. We forgot to put the bell out here.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. U.S.
Hey, you brought it up before I did.
That's
today.
right. That's right. Those of you betting over and under, I just screwed you over. We used to bet how long can we go into the show before David mentioned something's unconstitutional. So anyway, let's get back to this. So the Constitution does say that the federal government has power to regulate interstate commerce.
Right.
That's
and this
when,
truck's just going through Pawhuska.
right.
Okay.
And just going through Oklahoma because it comes.
Yeah.
It's coming.
From Tennessee to Colorado.
And
Kentucky.
Or Kentucky to
yeah.
Colorado.
Okay,
And,
here it
and
comes.
so, and they chose Oklahoma because they thought that the cops in Oklahoma would not be such Neanderthals about it. And they said, do not go through Kansas. At least people in Kentucky think we're more intelligent than Kansas, okay? So they must have been wrong. They were not considering Pawhuska nor Mike Fisher, the DA.
This is probably the first time the cops in Pawhuska have been mean to a hemp tribe.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah. So anyway, these 4 guys sat in jail like a month.
Yeah.
Now they finally decided to let 2 of them go, but they turned them state's evidence. And the other 2 guys who were just running the security vehicle behind it, those 2 guys are facing life in prison right now, and he's going to throw the book at them for having, full-blown biggest marijuana bust in Oklahoma history. And so the federal government just gave the red light to Pawhuska and said no state between the shipping state and the receiving state can interfere with that.
And this is good news.
Right, because they said if Kentucky certifies it as part of the USDA program, now all states have to honor it as federally protected commerce. Sweet. And they said until it gets up to Colorado, once it's in Colorado, then that state does have power to control what's in their state. But the states in between have to honor the transport.
That makes sense. I got a question. Now, when they grow the original industrial hemp, during the growing processes have to be registered or licensed, as unconstitutional as it might be. Is there some sort of... Does it have to be all like, look, we're growing this, but it's all industrial, right?
Well, if you want the Fed's blessing, then it has to be through a federal Department of Agriculture program.
You have to gain the blessing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you have to basically gain the blessing of whatever sovereign, whatever government you are going to be dealing with.
Now this General Counsel for the USDA says it's only protected if it's part of the program that we authorize.
Right.
Because, omnipotence is a godly virtue. So anyway, what they ended up saying, though, is since this was part of a federal program in Kentucky, therefore the feds are going to protect it. What they're saying is that Colorado, and especially that medicinal processing plant up in Colorado, has a green light to sue the state of Oklahoma because the district attorney, Mike Fisher, is a state agent of our government.
Which he is.
And then the city of Pawhuska, because they are the arresting officers, they are also prohibiting it. And then they go further in this opinion of the General Counsel, USDA, says, and there is a ban on any federal funds being used to prohibit this shipment. That means if the police department in the city of Pawhuska gets any federal funds at all, they are at risk and may have to repay what they've got from the federal government for police work because they used it to violate the Constitution.
Okay, which is kind of almost the question. Because
Well, they didn't use it to violate the Constitution. They used it to violate the USDA program and the protections of
but
that
interstate commerce though is a constitutional stipulation,
right? But that gets into a whole thing. They want to make it constitutional, but in reality, they're protecting their own programs, they're protecting their own licensure schemes, their own bailiwick.
So it seems like the feds came down on the side that we like this time, but is that an overreach of federal?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, that they happen to come down on the right side this time is pure accident.
Yes.
It's accident of the fact that Pawhuska ended up interfering with federal trafficking, as it were.
Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
basically it is an illegal act to transact business and to transport the products of that transaction if some government says it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, first of all,
and that's what you have with hemp and marijuana and things like that.
Yeah.
All business, all without exception, as long as it is legitimate, not dealing in stolen goods or anything like that, is
crime.
legitimate and is to be protected by the feds and the locals.
Yeah, listen, the Interstate Commerce Clause was most well-known bastardization happened over agriculture. Back, I think it was in time of FDR, about a man growing oats just for his consumption of his own animals on his farm, and they said, wait a minute, the USDA has control over mandates of who gets to grow how much.
Correct.
And so
the man grew 37 acres of wheat.
yeah, was it wheat? Okay.
It was 37 acres of wheat, and he was restricted to 19.
Okay.
And it was all to feed his own chickens.
This is the kind of story that proves them wrong when they say, oh no, these restrictions on water, they're not trying to get into your backyard pool and creek and stuff. It's like,
and that's the important thing, and because it's not just the USDA, it's the EPA and several others, because what exists in each state is the property and domain of that state, not of the federal government. The federal government.
I thought the county owned the land.
No. Well, okay, that leads into a very good
I'm saying
conversation
from the federal government's standpoint, okay, what's in each state is the domain of that state.
Right. In terms of regulatory domain, if you will.
That makes sense from
statutory
that
domain.
Right.
Yes, federalism says that the feds have certain responsibilities and they can exercise nothing outside of those areas. And the states are sovereign in terms of dealing with the statutory issues within their states. The feds have no ability to come in and regulate anything.
Right.
Hate crimes, federal hate crimes in the states are illegal.
Yeah, so
because the states have
a good example. Let's go back to liquor prohibition.
Okay.
How did we enact national prohibition on liquor? The only one legal way to do it was to amend our Constitution.
Correct.
Because the federal government by themselves has no authority to ban liquor.
Well, ban anything that's a
right, and so that's an example just from within the last 100 years of how it's supposed to be.
Right.
That in the interstate commerce, you can speak to as a federal government to some degree, but its existence within a state is only governed by that state. Just like firearms, as long as a firearm manufacturer only sells within his state, the Fed should have no authority over manufacturing firearms.
Well, the feds have no authority over manufactured firearms, period. I mean, the Second Amendment is clear, shall not be infringed means just that.
Right.
The thing is that, again, I'll state it again, regulation is not prohibition. And whenever there is a prohibition, it is therefore a faulty regulation. And it doesn't matter whether it's federal or state. Because our rights trump those prohibitions.
This is going to come up in our libertarian discussion.
Yeah. So anyway, Pawhuska made national attention on two stories in the same week.
Clearly, Pawhuska has been the sponsor of the first half of the show. So
that's right.
Thank you, Pawhuska.
Thank you, Pawhuska.
And I want to give a shout out. Tawana Bollinger is the grandma.
Nice job.
Who really did what she was supposed to do. And I tell you what, she's got a lot of detractors. She may not be the social light of the town. She's plain spoken. She is who she is. She doesn't apologize for who she is. And if the way she talks, the accent she has, or whatever, you know what? That woman showed more courage than most of the bridge club downtown.
Exactly.
Well,
that's so true.
And I don't know all of the issues, and I'm not getting into Pawhuska politics. But thank you, Laura, for
well, it's Tawana's her name.
Tawana. Thank you, Tawana, for your patriotism and your courage for standing up, because that needs to happen. Whether you prevail or not, your rights must be protected, and especially your rights when they are difficult and others disagree with them.
It's true. Patriotism is not kissing up to your government. More often, it's standing up against your government.
I'll tell you what, you spend 30 days in jail and you take a truckload of hemp and make it compliant. So, now we're going to move on to reparations in general. You know, sometime back I asked you guys just a general question about is fighting some sort of deviant behavior, and now we're going to talk a little bit in general about reparations.
Well, we talked a couple weeks ago about reparations, Elizabeth Warren's her Gay Reparations Act,
right?
And I've had an interesting discussion over the past several days with well, I'll say it, racists who are calling for reparations and think that everyone else owes them money for things that have happened in the past or are happening now, whether it happens to them personally or not.
And presumes we can calculate that number accurately.
Well, you know, it just
I'll be asking for that.
And you know, that comes down to, I mean, we've just about discussed the entirety of the issue, but it did lead me to the discussion led me to thinking, well, okay, we've got the Pawhuska thing and the Fed saying that they have the right, that the owners of the property and the people who have been wrongly treated, wrongly arrested and so forth, have the right to sue.
Yeah.
Well, who actually should they be suing? Should they be suing the city?
Let me catch up. You're talking about the owners of the property, the truck
and the hemp.
And now they're going to sue somebody because they were infringed on their trip, right?
Correct.
And now who should they sue?
And their entire load was destroyed. So they are out all the money that they spent for the load. So they are actually owed.
It was about $500,000 payload.
So they are actually owed $500,000.
Which has a street value of $14 trillion.
But they are actually owed not only that, their truck, which I don't think they've gotten back yet.
No, the last time.
All of the people are owed not only you know, their wages for their lost wages and things like that from the city, but also pain and suffering and this and that and the other thing. And there needs to be a punishment ascribed.
Yeah.
But the question is, to whom should they be suing? Yeah. Not to whom, but who should they be suing again?
Who is responsible for the damages?
Exactly. And how are they going to collect if these people don't have it?
We know how that's going to happen.
But the thing is, reparations are very much along the same lines. And the question is, how far does it go? How far away from the criminals themselves do you drag people into this?
The fast answer is how far equals time. And so why isn't it a quick answer of statute of limitations?
Well, no. What I'm saying is, how far away from the actual criminals are you going to be basically encumbering other people? So in other words, if you were a resident of Pawhuska and they sue Pawhuska and Pawhuska's out money now, so they tax you, who had absolutely nothing to do with it. How is that right? To be taxing
that's more justifiable as a member of the city that hired your people and elected your officials, and they were your guys.
Okay,
so,
right. And I understand that.
My question,
but what if you did? What if you voted against them because you knew this was very possible?
Before we get deeper into a different subject, you said further away, and I'm talking about time. You were talking about degrees of personality. A person's responsible for their actions. And you get so many people away. Okay. But I'm asking about time specifically.
Sure.
Why isn't reparations a moot point? Because of statute of limitations.
Exactly. Well, actually, the entirety of reparations is because there is nothing that you can take to court. There is nothing that can be done in court for reparations because although they happen, there's not there aren't the individual acts, because individual acts have to be tried against individuals.
What are you talking about? Slavery now, or what?
Well, slavery, but these people went into not only slavery, but they're owed money for missed opportunities for being black.
Well, let's separate that out. Let's separate that out from the hemp truckers, okay? Because the hemp truckers, you got an actual person.
You got an actual crime.
An actual crime. Here's my thing. The city of Pawhuska authorized that law enforcement agency. Right. Okay? They are agents of the city government. Right. This is where it's important who you vote for. Because when you give them the power to speak and make decisions on your behalf and collectively the whole city, you're on the hook for what they do. That is why there is a recall petition going on right now, before they cost the city any more money.
Van, you're making an excellent point, because most people, and I have been included that before I got interested in politics, most people who live in Oklahoma think there are two cities, Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And they don't think that whoever gets elected in Pawhuska really matters, because it's not Tulsa and it's not Oklahoma City. Right. However, you can see that Pawhuska can have federal implications.
Right. Now, in that case,
I mean, it's
because Mike Fisher, the DA, is an agent of the state district courts, an officer of the courts. Now the entire state of Oklahoma is on the hook for his actions. And we don't have enough of a means of reining in our DAs. Right. And it desperately needs to be done, not just in Pawhuska, not just Osage County, but in many of the counties of Oklahoma.
Well, and this goes to all government officials, not just the DAs, but judges, legislators, governor,
cops,
the entirety, because quite frankly, very little of what they do is actually lawful.
Yeah,
very little of what they do.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Does it matter what somebody else's state representative does? Yeah, because he's an officer of our state government, just like somebody else's DA. I'm on the hook for what Mike Fisher does, even though I don't get to vote for him.
Right.
You know, so this is important to the whole state. This is why AG Mike Hunter, get on this thing, rein it in, bring some sense to this.
Where's the bell? Where's the bell?
Well, actually, if Hunter doesn't, how is he keeping his oath when it says that he must do his job to the best of his ability, and he can be made aware of it? In fact, we can tag him as soon as we get done with this, and he will then not be able to claim ignorance. And therefore, if he doesn't go in and do something about it, that's all on him.
You know what?
He proves himself to be a perjurer.
And I'm going to finish up with this. A good example, contrast. You go over to the district attorney over east of here, Jack Thorpe, in Sequoia County. He had the same thing happen. They had a highway stop of a trucker. Sure enough, he's hauling hemp. Jack tells the local law enforcement, get some samples, send it to the DEA so they know what's being shipped through Oklahoma. Right. If they decide to do something, fine. They sent the trucker on his way to Colorado. That's the kind of district attorney that can handle this case. AG Mike Hunter, you can move this one over to that district court, let somebody competent like Jack Thorpe handle it, and we go on our way.
Right. There's more and more backbone growing in the country. I can see it with Trump and Stitt. These people coming into office. Yeah. We've still got a couple more topics. We're going to do the Libertarian Q&A, and we're going to talk about the ODOT mission creep also, and we're going to do crop of the drop, the absolute bottom 5 of 100, crop of the drop. Oh, yeah, and tonight's crop of the drop is slogan ideas for the new Oklahoma car tag.
Yes. Matt Cannell, are you listening?
And we've got, everybody else has a top 10. We've
been talking about it today.
The worst
and Matt has been chatting with the public about it.
Now, I have a particular problem trying to consume what I think is illogic from the Libertarians. I interacted with Rex Lawhorn, Libertarian candidate for governor, and he and this is back when he was running for governor, April 30th, and he made statement, the government has no right to force any set of beliefs or codes on any individual. Is that just okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't tell you what to believe, what to think.
Well, it depends on the context, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are sovereign over yourself.
And the ideal scenario is the dissolution of all forms of force.
Okay.
No,
His ideal scenario for the representative of governor Rex Lawhorn, he says the ideal scenario is for, I'm thinking that he's talking worldwide.
Well, I don't want to speak about I don't want to speak for Rex because I don't know where he's coming
these are
from
his
directly.
words. Okay,
No, I understand, but
Yeah.
I can tell you what that statement means.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly what Rex is meaning in this particular instance.
Can I just say this? And it might help a lot because I've been to Rex's.
Oh, I got a lot more, so hurry up.
Yeah, Rex is a dear friend, and we got to talking about
I like
this
Rex.
along with their state party chair, Erin. And she said, "Look, what we believe as libertarians, much of it is ideals that our society is not anywhere ready to implement. It's in a perfect society, this is what we, and I think that's the context he's getting at.
Well, that's part of the problem of the
he
libertarian.
qualifies his term, not all force, right? The ideal scenario is the dissolution of all forms of force. Later he qualifies, not all force, only unnecessary force. Now here is a slippery slope. How does a libertarian get to decide what is necessary force?
It all comes from what they call the non-aggression principle. And what that means is that you may not aggress against somebody else, but any force required to defend yourself is legitimate.
He makes the distinction between force and defense and the individual and the state. And so here are my questions. What are Lawhorn's comments about the Constitution? What is the libertarian's view about the constitutional use of U.S. military force? How do you justify military force in the U.S. From the libertarian standpoint?
They don't like it.
No, I'm going to disagree there.
Okay.
It depends upon which libertarian. Because
if it's truly living up to the motto of the Department of Defense, then that's fine.
True. And Rex Lawhorn would be on with that, according to what you
right. He would clearly, and I know Rex, I'm stepping out here.
He's not here. Just say something.
He listens. Rex, a dear friend. He listens, but a libertarian is not a pacifist.
He does not listen.
Well,
he doesn't listen to me.
He listens to me.
They play little mind games out there.
No, I really.
Like little high school guys. Let's pretend he doesn't exist.
Rex and Vicky are wonderful people.
I'm sure she is.
And is he good at social media?
Look,
we're all getting better.
He's not well spoken. He doesn't write very well.
But in person, you'd find him
he's a great guy. I'm sure he is.
But
he said if he became governor, he'd take out a restriction order against me.
Restraining order?
Yeah, whatever you got. I'm not familiar.
Anyway, well, I watch people go to bat against you at social media.
I don't do nothing but defend myself.
Medlock doesn't get along with you either.
Again.
Oh, Schmedlock is what I call him.
Again, it comes down to the non-aggression principle. We can defend ourselves, but we should not be going out and being colonizing the world.
So the libertarian would get to decide whether it's necessary force.
No, it comes down to whether or not something is aggression against you or you are doing the aggression. So it does come down to a matter of principle, although there would be opinion in there because nothing is done in a vacuum, and that's part of the problem.
Next follow-up. Does a state have a right to use defenses to protect itself from unnecessary federal force?
Yes.
Or force from an individual?
I think we have a natural right.
Can the state use its force to protect itself from the individual?
The state has actually abdicated that in Oklahoma's case.
Well,
when they
talking
wrote
about from the feds, or are you talking about from an individual?
No, I'm talking about our state pertaining to its relationship with the federal government. Right. They basically, in order to get Theodore Roosevelt to pass us into statehood, they kissed up and says, whenever we disagree with you, you are right and we are wrong. That's essentially how they put
Sounds like my
the
marriage.
submissive woman.
We say we will forever be a member. We will forever be a party to the United States, and we can never.
We'll never succeed. We promise.
Well, water in the river.
It's the very first. It's the I think it's the second article or the second section in Article 1 or 2 of our state constitution. So the point is that it's way high up in what we have said.
Yeah.
But to keep it to the question, what does a libertarian think about that question? That comes more down to what branch of libertarianism you follow.
Oh, I thought they were monolithic.
Let me bring this back to
because some don't believe that there's any place for government in the first place.
Wait a minute. Let's go back to Thomas Jefferson. He says, look, if there is a tyrannical and abusive edict of any government, a patriot has a duty to resist it.
Well, yes, and we just celebrated that document
constitutionally.
Right. The thing is that
but the libertarians don't buy into the
Constitution.
Constitution.
The problem is that and no, this is my big criticism of libertarians, is the non-aggression principle is the founding principle that we have in the Declaration of Independence and codified in the Constitution.
Let's qualify some. When we use the term libertarian, small L, big L, you've been talking big L libertarian, the Libertarian Party entity, right?
No.
Their official.
No.
Yes.
No, I'm talking.
Yes.
He may have been.
Yeah.
I was talking about libertarians in general and their philosophy. And if you want to go to what the Libertarian Party says, then we have to go to the platform.
Now we got to say, what is a libertarian? Because you're saying all libertarians believe.
How do you know
No,
libertarian
I'm saying,
except for by their representatives? How do you know libertarian?
Well,
libertarian principle is something that predates our nation.
Yes. The thing is that those who claim to be libertarians today don't recognize that very fact, and that our founding was libertarian.
Yeah.
And because libertarianism has gone through a change, especially when once you get to by the time you get to Friedman and everything like that, and he takes it down a road that's apart from the Constitution.
But most people became introduced to libertarian belief in the last 10 years through the campaign of Ron Paul. But Ron Paul, most people in the Libertarian Party said he wasn't a real libertarian. Of course, you get him down. Eventually, you pin him down, they'll say, "I'm the only true libertarian." The rest of the people, but anyway, Ron Paul was very much for Constitution. Yeah, I remember it's the Constitution. The Constitution.
Okay, so that we don't have to right now define all that stuff. It's my opinion that the whole libertarian movement has become. I remember Harry Brown in 2000 convincing me that abortion was wrong. I'm not saying he said abortion wrong. I listened to what Harry Brown said, and I realized abortion is wrong. Okay. I see now the Libertarian Party parading as Marxist perversion of liberty. They are totally perverted and gone to the left.
Well, there are those in the libertarian movement because they have a Marxist libertarianism,
and they're the most vocal,
which makes no sense.
I'm telling you, you talk about what a Republican believes, you'll probably be more accurate than if you talk about what a libertarian believes, because there's so much diversity in the Libertarian Party.
Well, even within the Republican Party or the Democrat Party.
Yeah, so much diversity.
There's gonna be streams where they are like lockstep. Then there's going to be others.
Let's talk not about so much diversity we can't count it. Yeah. Let's talk about a totally illogical concept at the national level. Which Chris Powell, I've got the quote. I won't bother to worry about it. He doesn't follow the platform. He doesn't follow any platform. And so I don't know how you can calculate whether he's doing what he's supposed to do according to representing people if you don't agree on some representation. But the National Libertarian Party platform declares, quote, "Force and fraud must be banished from human relationships." Right. End quote. I want to ask a question. What libertarian force will be used to banish and control human relationships? This is total illogic at the national level.
No, how do you force the abolition of force?
Well, how do you banish something if you don't have the right to banish it because you don't have control over others? And so it's it's a bunch of gobbledygook.
So
that's like saying I hate bigots, you know.
So right,
you don't? I do.
Where are you from?
Become one. When you hate one, you become one.
So also, just like so, to pretend that an economic state of unrestrictedness, like some libertarians want to do, is to accept one overarching restriction of no restrictions. You have to, if you're going to say, look, this globe is going to have no restrictions in the market. There's your restriction.
Yeah.
After that, it's the same thing like a leftist concept. There is no absolute truth. Once you accept the one absolute, then sure, no more absolutes.
Yeah. Well, it was like I was talking to an anarchist the other day, and
sounds like the setup for a joke.
And it basically was, I'm an anarchist, but not all anarchists are pure anarchists. They all end up accepting some form of hierarchy.
I'm only gay when I kiss a man.
well, the thing is, it's funny because they're anarchist. In other words, no head, anarchist.
Right.
And then he calls himself that and deals without a break. But says he's not pure. He accepts some sort of hierarchy. Yeah. So he's a hierarchist, but a minarchist or something like that.
Tom,
so
let me say, probably one of the best memes they came out with. I know it's been around for a long time, but I saw it during this last election cycle. It says, "We're libertarians. We want to take over the world and leave you alone."
So do the Marxists. I mean, that was the same trust.
Except they don't. They don't.
Neither will the libertarians.
Well, exactly.
What, an idiot?
I think
but these are good Marxists.
I think just like there are a lot of communists who really believe it in their heart and are pure as can be about it. They've never had to live under it, but I think that's true of libertarians too. Much of what they say is only doable in a perfect world.
Here's one of the problems with Rex Lawhorn when I try to interact with him. Mm-hmm. He said, quote, "Libertarian ideology is the basis of libertarian politics." Now, this is not well explained.
Well, the thing is that define libertarian ideology.
It's not only senseless, he's using the word for itself to define itself. It's analytically, but he's going to be governor.
He says our party comes from our platform. That's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, but he didn't. You did.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my point.
Yeah.
Okay. So the real issue with the libertarian platform is that it's incongruent with a personal versus social ethic. And here's the real problem I have with it.
Okay.
It boasts a broad, low-level ethics system for personal morality. Do anything you want, everybody. Mm-hmm. Now, where do we get our people that are going to govern from? That group. Mm-hmm. We pick the people to govern us from the group that the libertarians hold a very low-level ethics system for. Do anything you want.
Okay.
Be any way you want. But then they expect a high level of public morality from the officials of state. Okay? This is incongruent. And they exercise moral relativism. They lure utopian promise of pure subjectivism for the world, which is, like you said, every libertarian will say, "I'm the only true one." Pure subjectivism. Each one has their own thing. Then they switch the bait. So they lure you into libertarianism with the pure subjectivism. Anything you want. Dye your hair blue. Have sex with a goat. Anything you want, because we're not going to restrict you. And free market is, as soon as we control the world, it's a free market. Yeah. And then they switch that for rule utilitarianism. That is, because now we're going to ration everything. Well, that's not really necessary. That's rule utilitarianism. Well, we want to use force now because we knew we had to. But not now because And then they sprinkle it with consequentialism. With we've got to do this now because if we don't, it'll be worse. And this is the problem with libertarianism. All it is flowery Marxism. That's it.
Well,
they're anti-capitalist.
Well, the thing is that
they use class income.
Well, I don't agree with you on at the end of that because as soon as you
don't you agree with me
with the rule utilitarianism and whatever that other term
all that mumbo jumbo?
That was a lot to digest.
Was a lot to take in.
It's a lot to write because it's correct if you read it.
Well, the thing is that I disagree with it because then they stop being libertarians. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as you go there, you become a Marxist. Now, if what you're trying to say is that they're truly Marxists and in the guise of libertarian, that's a different subject, and I would have to examine that. Many of them are,
that
but
the rationale that libertarians typically use, I'm not talking about who is a real libertarian and what real libertarianism is. I'm talking about today's libertarian. When you argue with people on Facebook about libertarianism, I don't believe there's any such thing as an unrestricted market.
I think we can all appreciate on a very basic level what it means to have more freedom in your own life.
Right.
That we don't remember how you got upset with Mayor Yes.
Oh.
Mayor Bynum using shaming in his role as mayor. And it should be none of his business to be shaming people. A libertarian would say, it's your own business what you do in your life. If you chew your fingernails, that's your prerogative. I don't need to be telling you what's best for you, what healthcare decisions to make for you, what parenting decisions for you. You know, when it comes to how you deal with other people, then all of a sudden there's a legitimate role of protecting the victims.
The rub comes with capitalism and borders. They're ultimately anti-capitalist. They're pro-capitalism once they get control of the world. Capitalism equals borders.
Well,
this is how I know what is mine is private property.
Well, yes.
That's a very good point.
This is the problem.
They push for and they want to pretend like it's economic restrictions. It's an economic border is what they want to bust.
I think you're getting at something. I don't think we've actually pinned it down to actual words, but I think you're onto it with the whole border issue, because that to me is the most inconsistent thing I see in a lot of my very good libertarian friends.
Well, actually, they want there are some that are openly calling for a one world government, a strong government to then, like they said, take over the world and leave you alone. The idea is then that there are no borders. We all live kumbaya, and the market takes care of itself. But everybody can interact with everybody else without any borders. Yeah. The thing is, like you said, that ignores reality. That ignores cultural and all sorts of norms.
Just like communism, just like Marxism, just like
well, cultural, geographic, and other factors it completely ignores. The weather. It ignores all of those things because all of those things, which are beyond human control ever.
All right.
But remember, let me say this. Ronald Reagan said, at the heart and soul of conservatism is libertarianism. Okay? The thing is, today's libertarians have moved so far away from Barry Goldwater's libertarian movement.
Well, and again, I come back. Our founders were libertarian in the sense, because what they gave us was a government that would leave you alone. And your only real duty was to support your neighbors and protect their rights, leave them alone, don't harass them, and step up if we were attacked.
Can I quote Jefferson or you on it?
Go right ahead.
The just powers of government are derived from its protecting of the people from others. Where government goes wrong is where, and this is a little bastardization, where it protects us from itself. That's a Reagan quote. But he says, what does it matter to me if my neighbor believes in one God or 20 gods? It neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg.
Correct.
Thomas Jefferson had it pretty well defined.
Would you agree that the libertarian philosophy, as you're talking generally, is based, their ethics system would be humanistic?
Yeah, but the former state party chair, Aaron Adams, told me at, Rex Lawhorn's house, he says, look, much of the libertarian principles are not workable in a fallen world.
I'm not saying humanistic is bad. I'm just trying to know what we agree on. Yeah. Libertarians say that they are atheistic and apolitical.
Wait, say that again? Libertarians say that they're atheistic and apolitical?
Apolitical, right.
No, it's a political movement.
Yeah, I keep trying to say that.
Well, I've never heard anybody say that it's apolitical.
So along the way, now I'm not quoting this guy, but I'm going to call him by name because I had a nice interaction with him. Brett McQuigg, He said the worldview of libertarianism is in line with human nature. We are all people, we are all human, and it is natural for us to organize our own lives and not be ruled by a psychopathic few of the worst of us. And then he goes on to say, my right to restrict others ends at my property line, which includes my person. Now there's your second restriction of your unrestricted world. So then he goes on to say, because this is Brett McQuigg and he can't quit, law is obvious or it's not law. So no, you don't need to write down your restrictions, which I understand, but he also admits there are restrictions. Now, does the right of a pregnant woman end? My question to him. Does the right of a pregnant woman end before she restricts the person living in her womb? Because all of this discussion that we've been talking about doesn't include people who live in water areas called a uterus. And so, now, his answer. Good example, good question. He said to me, I think abortion is murder, but my only choice in the matter is to disassociate from people who think differently.
Yeah, that's disappointing to me, because that says, well, if my neighbor kills his mother, my only
I'm just not going to go over there for cookies.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to go out and come out and play.
So then I said to him in response to something he said to me, because one of the things you'll notice about all of your arguments with libertarians is they'll never accept half of your definitions or half of reality. So then I said, your definitions are suspect. Murder equals nuanced issues, because he called them a nuanced issue.
Yeah.
Well, it's nuanced. It's nuanced in the sense that the abortion issue, I've come to realize, has been conflated. We talk about abortion and automatically equate that with murder.
Selective abortion.
Well, especially selective abortion. But could that not be done without the murder? And the thing is that if it could be done without the murder, and was, then there would be a right there that would and could be protected. The thing is that has not been the issue, because our society has been just that depraved that to us abortion equals murder, because we're just gotta kill the kid. And the thing is that we need to start thinking a little bit more about this.
I mean, really, if Brett McQuigg really thinks that abortion is murder, then he's misdefining one of those two words.
No, he's missing it on his responsibility toward a murderer. In other words, the thing is to leave a murderer in society, because this pure libertarianism works if you are Robinson Crusoe by yourself on an island.
This is the same thing I'm saying. If you control the entire
if you're alone and or with one guy, and you just never have
Tom, you'll
control
see
your entire environment. That's what I'm saying.
Let's go to the macro of that. Is that the bigger the city you live in, the more liberal the government is, the more control. The more we got to put up with people, the more we feel the need to control them. Okay?
Well, that's the human tendency, but it doesn't have to happen that way.
But no, it does work out that way, because human nature being what it is. I mean,
well, hang on, because when you start talking more control and all of this stuff, and especially when you talk progressives and the liberal left, we are talking tyrannical control. We're not talking legitimate control. Yes, there are more rules, because remember, regulation regulates our interactions when we come together to keep us all safe. And there will be more rules the more people and more interactions you have.
People will try to make any decision that they can get 51% support for.
Well, and because that's the point, is that you can't have lazy legislation. And that's what we've got. We've got lazy legislators who go for the easy, hey, well, let's just tell them what to do and we're done. Let's go home and have coffee or a drink.
And this is where populism is dangerous.
Well, it's why it's actually illegal, because you can't vote somebody's rights away.
It's like the chickens and the hogs we talked about last week.
Right.
You know, when the majority votes to take away the life of the minority, you know, and in abortion, we don't give the baby a vote.
So Brett McQuigg and I did agree.
Sadly.
I think we agreed at least that government equals force. I find myself agreeing with him in his verbiage of what he thinks government is, and I agree that government equals force. However, he said that all force is inherently evil, and I said no.
Correct.
Evil without force is not inherently evil without intent. A government whose fundamental purpose is to intimidate, bully, and plunder people, which is his words, is an ill-conceived tyrannical force. A government whose fundamental purpose is to protect the private property and the personage of each individual is a liberating force.
Exactly.
It's the difference between, this is me talking libertarianism to the libertarian.
Yes.
I am saying...
Welcome to my world.
Okay. Thank you, Brett, for bringing that out. Our last libertarian session is to you.
When a libertarian starts disagreeing with Thomas Jefferson, by God, they've lost me. Because Thomas Jefferson took liberty beyond what he was supposed, especially when he was president of the University of Virginia. He was a horrible president because he gave the kids too much liberty.
Do you remember Squawkin' Dawkins from the old days of Sooner politics, just a few years back?
Okay.
Squeakin' Squawkin' Dawkins, Craig?
Craig Dawkins,
okay.
Oh yes. I usually sick Al Gerhardt on
He's
him.
long gone now, but Brett McQuigg is taking over his position.
Oh, okay.
And the reason you can tell is because Brett McQuigg will say one thing in 3 different posts because he gets paid by George Soros per post.
Yep. They come to
Okay,
visit.
let's talk about ODOT mission creep, and then we're going to finish up with the crop of the drop.
Yes!
Absolute
I'll tell
1
you what.
100.
Listen, if the government's got something they're ashamed of, you're going to get a press release on a Friday afternoon.
ODOT mission creep.
But if they want to pitch something as the cat's meow, it's going to come out on Monday morning. And let me tell you, this morning was Monday morning.
Right.
And Oklahoma Department of Transportation just announced we've got this new department in our agency called the Department of Mass Transit and Mobility. Who could be against that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, right away my antenna went up because
you lost me at department.
I have been fighting for most of the last decade to keep this choo-choo train run by the state taxpayers that's someday going to take us from downtown Tulsa to downtown Oklahoma City, where we can watch a ball game. Yeah, and you know,
how will I get back?
And the folks out in Boise City and down there in Rue Bottom, Oklahoma, are going to have to pay taxes for it. Don't you know? And so that was my first thing. Oh, they want that high-speed rail, don't you know? So that wasn't it at all. I read the press release, and you know what it is?
No.
Okay. There's all of these federal grants that you can write applications
it's like
for.
Free money.
But yes, but if you don't have a state Department of Mass Transit and Mobility,
you don't get it.
You don't get it. And what it was is Mayor Oklahoma City, David Holt. I'm sure he was for this, and I'm sure G.T. Bynum was for this. We got to get that going so that we can write our municipal grants, put them over there for the state to send on and say, yep, we checked it out. Give Tulsa this and Oklahoma City this. And
because there's only 2 cities in Oklahoma, except for Pawhuska.
That's right. So this is mission creep, would you not say?
Well, I'd say it's way beyond that.
The bell would be ringing right
now. The bell would be ringing. I'd be shaking it crazy. Because, again, this is to get federal money stolen from you for things that the federal government doesn't have the right to invest in.
Yeah, well, stolen from your kids. We're going to get from the Chinese, but your kids...
Well, yes, well, we're going to get it now. But it's taken from we, the taxpayers.
They use the money they take from the taxpayers to promote, market, buy advertising, and sell these ideas.
Yes. And so you have all of this just I don't even know a word for it. It's just horrible. But it's unlawful. There is nowhere in the U.S. Constitution that the federal government may build any roads other than post roads. And so our interstate highway system. I know you were pushing for a new interstate highway a while back, and I was against that because of this very point. Well, yes, it would be helpful, but to have the feds involved in it in any way is absolutely unconstitutional.
Okay, but this is back to the incremental thing. We have to separate the strategy from the tactic to try to. The strategy is we want to get back to what you say is right. The tactic has to be sometimes you get what you can on the way there.
Well, here's the thing. All politics is local. And what we have is local and state politicians pushing for and doing unconstitutional behaviors, which is an act of perjury of their oath of office. The only thing that keeps everything working together is their oath of office, and that they actually do what they say they're going to do, which is minimum is uphold the Constitution. So we have them reaching out, taking stolen money and illegally borrowed money to do things that they don't have any right to do. Okay, they themselves don't have the right, and they're taking it from others that don't have the right, who are then coming to us with guns, forcing us to give it up and forcing us to go along. So the way to deal with this is to make sure Governor Stitt knows about it, and then go after everybody who's on these boards.
Well,
they should never serve on another board in Oklahoma ever.
Is legislation that appropriated it and started it, and the governor signed it. So
okay.
All things are heading in the right direction.
But here's the thing: in this, you'll find that our state big business, the chamber, as it said, the Reed Report is a scorecard that big business gives of all of our legislators. And I looked at all the bills this year. I published it on Sooner Politics. You can dig in and find it. But it scores these legislators and how much they support what's essentially a Keynesian theory of economics. Now, for those not heard that, it basically believes the government has a duty to prime the pump. I'm sorry, I got a phone call. Let me just shut this thing down here.
It's a Libertarian Party.
Sorry, Mr. Baker, I'll call you back.
I disagree with Tom and what he said.
Okay. So, now, that was supposed to be declined. We'll get it. Hello, answering machine, take the call. Okay. So anyway, what the Keynesian belief is that government plays a fundamental role in priming the pump.
Correct.
So that business will get going so good that taxes will more than make up for what the government spent.
And there's a perpetual motion machine out there somewhere too.
So,
it's on the same theory. Well, it's on the same.
Most of your
utopian
big business chamber type people really believe that. They believe that government spending just boosts the economy so much that it's well worth it.
In the short term, it does do what they want, and what they want is to get all of theirs now. They don't care which of our grandchildren they harm, because it's the grandchildren and great-grandchildren and the great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be paying for this.
They don't profit margin the country. They cash flow increase the country.
Yes. And so this is part of the problem that we're having with this is there are lobbyists stacked up at every legislature in Congress calling for, spend a little here, you'll get more than enough taxes to pay for it.
Right.
Hey, at least we are not going to have hired lobbyists from the state agencies now. That just came down, Governor Stitt.
We'll see. I applaud him for it. Now it's the implementation.
At least we're trying.
Well, it's a start. And that does not mean they won't be lobbying, but they won't be hiring outside. They won't be spending the money to hire outside lobbyists to come in and do it.
It happens under the table, and I know this just in the mental health field because there are so many contractors with the State Department of Mental Health.
They will do it in the stead.
And believe me, the department keeps track of who's down there doing coffee chats. Why do I know this? Because I've been in the room with them.
Right now, Brosa would say, well, David, they can't do that because there's a law against it. All right, we're going to wrap this up with the crop of the drop. Everybody else has their top 10, the best of the best, and, the cream rises to the top. But what happens to the rest? It drops to the bottom, and we've got the best of that. The crop of the drop, the absolute bottom 5 of 100. And tonight's crop of the drop is slogan ideas for the new Oklahoma car tag.
Yes.
Now, what is this thing that they're doing? Where they put out a new branding?
Well, yes. Matt Pinnell, Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell, is trying to rebrand the state and have consistent branding across all branches of government and all of our material and so forth.
So have they decided on the name yet? Is it finished?
No, what you're talking about for the car tags and that sort of thing. No, it's a branding in general. The car tags was
the slogan for the car tag. I think they
what he called it. Well, I don't know about that, but what he called it today was the clickbait. He's working on branding altogether. So it's probably like the state. A state brand motto kind of a thing.
This is specifically for car tags.
Okay, let's use an example. In Arkansas, I remember back in the 80s, it was land of opportunity. I remember Debbie and I just got married. It was New Year's Day, had the day off. We drove over there and got to the state line, and it says Arkansas, land of opportunity. I said, let's get out and take a picture, right?
Yeah.
There was a shack behind my wife. But I took a picture, land of opportunity, there's a shack there.
Shack of opportunity.
Was just in Siloam Springs. This is not the old highway. But anyway, then what Clinton finally got done over there in Arkansas was let's change it to the natural state.
Right.
It's on their license plates. It's on everything. That's what Matt's talking about.
Right.
All right. Now, if I heard the news correctly, I believe they've already picked the winner. And I believe the winner, and I'm really not joking, if I heard this correctly, the winner slogan, I'll tell you at the end. By the crop of the drop.
These didn't quite make it.
These are the worst of the worst. I'm going to tell you what the winner was. Number 95, Oklahoma is still there. Number 97, Oklahoma, home of Arkansas's river. Number 98, Oklahoma, better than mediocre. Number 99, Oklahoma, racism is not okay. And number 100, the worst of the worst, the absolute crop of the drop, absolute bottom 5 of 100. Number 100, Oklahoma, home of the 1921 race riot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what we're going to be looking at in 2021. That's all they're going to be talking about.
Oh, boy.
But I believe the winner actually happened, and the name that they picked, the slogan was, Oklahoma is better than okay.
Better than okay.
Really?
I actually think racism is not okay is a better slogan than that.
I don't know.
Hey, that's our show tonight. 3D Politics, best wishes to the D'Ambroso family with their edition. We hope to see you back next week. I'm Tom McKay, your host, with David Vann, David Oldham, and David D'Ambroso in waiting. We'll see you next week for more 3D Politics.